Many are on holiday in South Africa. The country's finance minister is hard at work with efforts to boost the economy much quicker. Treasury Department, alongside the Reserve Bank today, hosted the first of many workshops, which included some international economic experts. CNBC Africa's reporter Karabo Letlhatlha was there and joins me in studio. So no holiday for former pensioners, eh?
No holidays for the failed agriculturalists either. Look, it was an interesting day. I thought it was a very interesting morning and something that really puts paid to all the talk that we've had in South Africa. It says that bureaucrats are willing to put in the work, are willing to go the extra mile. But for me, I thought the highlight of my morning really was Reserve Bank Governor number 10, Mr. Letlhatlha, who was next to, of course, Reserve Bank Governor number 8, as we call him, Governor Minister, Mboweni. But it was really interesting with speaking off camera with the Governor Letlhatlha, because he was telling me very interesting things. First of all, he's on holiday and he had to come back from the Drakensberg, right, so he could be here for Christine Lagarde's South Africa visit, which he said was very, very important because it was the first one in 5 years, so it's very important that he's here. But he wasn't wearing a suit. He went Madiba style shirt, if you will, to show and further illustrate that he's not really here. He's still on holiday.
He's got that swag at times.
You know what I found interesting? Like, right, during the off-camera conversation, he was showing me his sleeping heart rate, his resting heart rate. So his resting heart rate is 57, 58 when he's in Gauteng. When he's in the Drakensberg, it's about 46.
It shows.
I think we should move office. I think the sub must be in the Drakensberg.
For sure, but I suppose it speaks to the amount of pressure that the governor is under, because I mean his role is also very key in growing this economy, which was essentially what this workshop is about. I mean, so everyone is there, local, the best of our local economists, the best of foreign economists. I see that there's some fellows from Harvard there. I mean, exactly what was the purpose of this workshop?
So first of all, what the minister wanted to address, Minister Mboweni, was that this is not a colloquium of international speakers. There's local speakers as well, and there is local academics as well who were part of that. My observation that I thought was probably the more surprising one was that there wasn't the voice of business. So I am all for economists gathering and giving details of a recovery action plan to government, but I mean, they don't have the money. They are not investors. They are just advisors. And part of the problem is that part of the cluster that is there today, I mean, you have people like, as Tito Mboweni corrected me, Professor Hausman, who is from Harvard. He's an economist lecturer there. He's also the director for the Center of International Development. Like, he was here in 2010, made recommendations to Treasury, which he says most were not really applied, and that is part of the problem. And what the governor, Letlhatlha, was lamenting with me is the fact that we seem to talk more than we actually act, and that's part of the problem. But I was asking him particularly about his visit with Christine Lagarde and what he had to say to her in response to some of our growth concerns. And this is basically, in a nutshell, my questions to the governor, which he used as an introductory speech of his delivery today.
One of the questions that came to me was, when are you going to start implementation? And they asked me, they said, the managing director of the IMF was here, what are the concerns? And I said that she had concerns about growth in South Africa. And then they said, so what did you say to the managing director? What are you going to do about growth? So I said, we have got a colloquium coming on Friday. So, but the issue of implementation is going to be crucial, particularly because South Africa is now lagging not just global growth. We are lagging global. We are lagging other emerging market peers in terms of growth. And when you look at the sub-Saharan Africa, Actually, if you strip out the performance of the three big economies in sub-Saharan Africa, being Angola, Nigeria, and South Africa, then you will actually realize that sub-Saharan Africa is actually growing pretty strongly. So the laggards are the three big economies in sub-Saharan Africa. I hope that we're going to start this. We are no longer just going to discuss these things. We are going to talk about doing things. We will have to be implementing.
Of course, there was the Governor Lesetja Kganyagone's Drakensberg swag. Karabo, I mean, talking about implementing, and you know why? Because when he was with, or he held that media briefing with IMF Chief Christine Lagarde, she cited as number one risk of South Africa not realizing its growth, complacency to actually implement reforms. And we have a big track record of talking a lot and not doing a lot.
So, as the governor was telling me, Karabo, when Professor Hausman was here first in 2008, he made recommendations. There was 25 recommendations. And then what did we have after that? We had the inclusive growth path strategy. And then after that, we had the national development plan. And then after that, we now have, we had the 9-point plan. And now we have the stimulus recovery plan. Part of the problem is the lack of implementation. But Lesetja Kganyago is just the landlord with regards to this, and he's happy to take a backseat. The man of the hour, really, was Finance Minister Mboweni, to which I had a couple of questions. And one of them was really, if you're going to speak about economic growth, why isn't, if you're going to speak about rather the growth of the agricultural sector, why isn't the Minister of Agriculture in the room? And that's what I wanted to find out, and this is what his response was.
Ministers, actually, I didn't want to have too many ministers here. I don't want a cabinet meeting here. That's why I only invited, I think, 2 ministers, trade and industry and economic development. And I think the Minister of Trade and Industry is somewhere in the world, but I didn't want a cabinet meeting. They have enough time in the cabinet to discuss issues. We only, and if you have got too many cabinet ministers in a meeting like this, you lose the sense of a colloquium. And the cabinet ministers will get together, I'm sure, in January on their own. You really don't want to do that.
Final question, Minister. I just spoke to Professor Ricardo
Hausman.
He speaks about the fact that when they were here initially and made recommendations, it took a while to implement those recommendations. So that's part of the South African narrative. The problem is us debating recommendations which have been made instead of implementing them. How is this going to be different to any of the steps that we've taken?
Well, my job is to organize a conversation, let the conversation conclude in whatever way it concludes, and we'll make available the recommendations to the cabinet. And it's up to the leadership of the country to make sure that they implement those that they want to implement. They might not want to implement everything. If you say, for example, you're recommending that the number of working hours must be increased, I don't think that would run in South Africa at all. Don't fly. So not all the recommendations that people are going to make here might find common ground with the broad policy perspective of the government. So it's possible that, and also we have to dampen the expectations of the academics a little bit. Not all that they say sometimes is correct.
Naughty directed there. Of course, Karabo, that was the finance minister. Not
Body
sounding very
language
confident.
did not necessarily complement what I thought was today's effort. But, you know, you can only tell government what you think. You can't force them to enact any of these recommendations.